world is going from a world of centralization to decentralization. Now, it's important because the WEF, the World Economic Forum, has been meeting this week in Davos, and it's all about globalism, trying to get one world government. So if they're pushing to get this one world government, how could me, Mark Moss, on the Mark Moss Show, talk about the world going into decentralization? Because that's not what the WEF wants, right? Certainly not. But that's exactly what's happening. And we can see it all over the place, like with the money supply breaking down. There was an article I saw that came out this week that talked about the fragmented world, and it's how it's sleepwalking into World War III. This is a big deal because as the world continues to break apart, agitation runs high, risks run high, and instead of global cooperation, you get global coercion, manipulation, and potentially even war. Now, at the WEF, the World Economic Forum, we had the self-appointed elites that were all there. And Klaus Schwab, the ringleader, the mastermind of the World Economic Forum, he was talking about the need for, quote, cooperation in a fragmented world. That's what he was talking about. Now, what does that mean, cooperation in a fragmented world? So he wants a world of globalism where one group of unelected leaders control the world. But when the world's breaking apart and doesn't want to participate in that, how does he achieve that? Which, of course, he doesn't, but he's still trying to, which is what he's calling for. At least can we have cooperation in a fragmented world? Good luck with that. He says that, quote, the most critical fragmentation is that we're going through right now is mired in problems as all of these tensions rise from these countries each looking out for themselves. And he says that it's very important that we work. President Macron of France got together and said it's very important that we have one world government because we have to save the world. If we don't have one government, how will the world cooperate? Which it won't. And so how will we get this green, sustainable economy? Which is you can't. A green, sustainable economy for the world. Now, if you're in, the developed world, if you're in Canada, Australia, Europe, or the United States, your quality of life is pretty good. But if you're like the majority of the world, your quality of life maybe isn't so good. About half the world lives on less than $5 a day. Half the world. We're talking about 4 billion people live on less than $5 a day. 3/4 of the world lives on less than $10 a day. How's their quality of life? I don't know where you live, but for me to go out to lunch is like $20 for lunch. They're living on 75% of the world lives on less than $10 a day. So their quality of life is not very good. And for them to sit back and think about these elites flying on their private jets to go to Davos, talking about this green, sustainable economy where we should have less energy, where their babies die every single day because they don't have electricity for an incubator or a sonogram or whatever, and they're going to hear these elites saying that we need to use less energy, I don't think they're going to go along with that. I don't think they're okay saying, yeah, we'll just be more poor, and yeah, we should just never get energy, and yeah, we'll just continue to live in the dark ages with sticks and huts. I don't think that 3/4 of the world's population is okay with that. And I think it's showing. We can see that these leaders in Davos have had to shift their narrative, and it's something I want to talk about. Of course, we've talked about the Great Reset, which this video will end up on YouTube, on my Market Disruptors channel, by the way. Just check it out on YouTube, Market Disruptors. And there will probably be a little warning under there saying that the Great Reset is taken out of context and it's a conspiracy. No, it's not. Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum wrote the book. The title is The Great Reset. So YouTube can give you all the little warnings you want. He wrote the book. Why would they be trying to hide from that? They ran the campaign that you'll own nothing and be happy. They wrote the book, The Great Reset. Public opinion doesn't like that. Turns out most people don't want to own nothing. They don't think they'll be happy. And so this year at the World Economic Forum, they decided to change that. Now there's a new mantra. They're calling it, quote, the new system. No more the Great Reset. People didn't like the Great Reset, we'll just call it the new system. It's good marketing. It's good branding. It doesn't change the fact of what they're trying to do. They've been talking about this moment that's most likely going to happen, and we may not be prepared for it, called the polycrisis. A polycrisis. In perfect English, that could be like a perfect storm of all these different global risks coming together. And so that is what is happening. At the event, Klaus Schwab called for people to, quote, master the future. And so this group of people, these unelected leaders, these rich, these elite, that are out of touch, that flew on their private jets, they are coming together to master the future, to confront all these crises that are going to happen, and they need to proactively work and put measures in place to protect us. Crises like what, you might ask? Well, apparently we're going to have like a really bad cyber pandemic, which maybe we're already having. We'll talk about that. Apparently we're having another pandemic. One of the talks was that we need to be ready for the next pandemic. Okay, so they want to preemptively be ready for these, or I guess let them all happen at one time so they can have this polycrisis. And it goes back to, was it Emmanuel? What was his name? Emmanuel. He said, never let a crisis go to waste. And so, one of the ways, and Klaus Schwab said it, one of the ways that we can affect real change or push real change is through a crisis, because in a time of fear, people are willing to accept anything in order to get past that fear. And so if we create this crisis all the time, hey, you're about to get wiped out from a cyber pandemic or a health pandemic or a financial crisis, or you name it, fill in the blank, then you're going to be looking for someone to come solve that problem and cure your fear, is what's going on. Now, one of the other things that they talked about this week was, of course, the elite's obsession with achieving total financial control. Now, of course, I talk about this all the time, right? Control the food, control the energy, and control the money. And so they had a lot to say this week at the financial conference, the World Economic Forum, about the central bank digital currencies and how they could control the populace if they can control the money. Now, of course, they didn't use the word control the people that way. They more talked about it in a sense of they could control the bad actors. And they could keep us all safe from, things like terrorism. Because if they could just see every single financial transaction that you do, then they could potentially keep us safe. Seems like no matter what plan they come up with, whether it's to save the environment or save the economy or to save the internet or to save the money, you name it, fill in the blank, save whatever. In order to save whatever, we all have to give up more of our individualism, our autonomy, and our freedom. Funny how that works. None of it gives us back more of what it is that we actually want. I saw this other article. They were talking about how at the World Economic Forum in Davos, they called themselves, quote, the select human beings. Select human beings. And so the thing is, you have to keep in mind is that they know better than you. You're dumb, you're stupid, you can't think for yourself. And so you need people like this who are smarter than you, they're better looking than you, they're richer than you, and you need them to tell you what to do. They call themselves, quote, select human beings. And we just see just so much of this stuff, and that's why I like to tell you exactly what they're saying. We saw, Brian Stelter sitting down with, who is this? The head of the European Union, talking about, here it is, the European Commissioner, VP Vera Jourova. She's at the WF saying that illegal hate speech, which you will have soon also in the US, I think that we have a strong reason why we have this in the criminal law. So what she was saying, she's sitting down with Brian Stelter, who's supposed to be a journalist, which should be asking questions, hard-hitting questions that you may want to know. And she's telling him that the U.S. is going to have laws very soon about illegal hate speech.